It turns out that being President of the United States of America isn't really as easy as all that. We're not walking down corridors chatting state affairs, there's complaints to manage, weapons defense programs to oversee, and illegal aliens to blast back into outer space. Don't believe me? Then feast your eyes on the joyous carnage that is Saints Row 4, the latest title in the Saints Row franchise to carry on the power-bombing, gun-waggling, mayhem-inducing tradition. Given that I'm a big fan of the willy-waggling antics Saints Row 3 had to offer, I recently headed down to this presidential location in London to get my hands on the game and interview Senior Producer Jim Boone. That is, if security will let me in first.
Saints Row 4 is a game about you being the President of the United States, suffering an alien invasion and gaining superpowers. You know, it's a very typical sort of game. Like
yeah, just, you know, mimics real life.
Right, exactly. It happens to all of us. Yeah, and so we like to joke around and say that this is kind of the logical extension of Saints Row the Third. You know, or the whole series for that matter. You know, where in Saints Row 1 you're trying to join the Saints, and then in Saints Row 2 you're the leader of the Saints. Then in Saints Row 3 you're this big pop culture icon. So what's left but for you to be the President of the United States? We think this has a logical sort of progression to it. So what happens is when the aliens do invade, what they're trying to do is they're trying to conquer the galaxy, and the way that they do that is they'll abduct people and then try to indoctrinate them. So in other words, rather than just killing them, they want to try to make them become part of the Zen. And so what they've done is they've abducted you know, the president, and all of your homies who are all cabinet members you know, and so what they do then to try to break your mind is they put you in these virtual prisons, these kind of nightmare realms. That's what they use to try to break your mind. And so you're in this virtual version of Steelport, and that's why you ultimately try to break free from that. And doing so, you're able to bend the rules of that virtual world, which is what gives you superpowers. And then ultimately what you're doing in the real world, which is in this alien mother ship where they've abducted everyone, is you've got to go free your homies, and each of them are in their nightmare world, their own nightmare world.
Previous installations of Saints Row have been about kind of building up your gang, kind of building up your cred and all that kind of thing. So because in this one you're all in separate kind of Steelport prisons,
right.
Is there still a gang building element to this? Do you still need to kind of build up your reputation and that kind of thing?
You do. It's kind of done in a very different way, exactly as you can imagine. So as you go around and rescue each of these individuals from their nightmare realms, so you're bringing them into your own, into the Steelport one. The reason why you're doing this is the more damage you can do in your virtual prison, and the more of it you can take over, okay, the more disruptive it becomes to the simulation itself. And that is ultimately going to work for you in terms of your ultimate battle against Zinyak in the real world. Mm-hmm. There's still full neighborhood, you know, like city takeover. We actually have loyalty missions this time for each of your homies. So when you go and rescue them from you know, their virtual prison, it's totally optional, but the player could then do a loyalty mission which will give them superpowers in the virtual world. So along with you, you've got your sidekick now that, you know, Ben King now has superpowers. And it's amazing. So it's a lot of fun to be able to do that.
Sounds pretty mad.
Yeah.
So you mentioned superpowers there, because obviously we're in a virtual world, so we have superpowers. What kind of superpowers do you have?
Gosh, yeah, we try to add a lot, and the way we tend to think of them in two ways. There are navigation type superpowers, so you can do things like super sprint through the world. You can run faster than cars, and cars won't even stop you. You can run right through cars while you're super sprinting along, or you can do super jumps where you can literally jump on top of a building just with a one jump. So it's just an amazing way to navigate through the world. But then you've also got offensive superpower abilities. So I can do things like do a blast that will freeze enemies, or I can do telekinesis, where I can pick up a giant semi and just throw it through the air, or throw it into my enemies, whatever the case may be. And so there's just, we try to come up with a lot of variety, but all just fun mechanics that ideally will help you just have fun within the world.
How big are these worlds?
It's a pretty big size. In terms of Saints Row 4, it's the same square footage of Steelport, like in terms of the actual map itself. It hasn't grown any larger, but what we've done is we've tried to build up much more. Right. So there's a lot of alien towers that you can slowly climb, and now all these buildings that you can jump up and super sprint up, they're all accessible to you now. And because they're aliens, they can actually spawn on top of the roof. So you can't just escape them by jumping on top of a roof. But the point being, that means that like the play area, even though it's technically the same because it's the same size as Steelport, but you can access everything now, and it's all fair game to play through. So it's huge. It's just by going vertical, it's opened things up so much more.
One thing I love about Saints Row, and I kind of fell in love with it in Saints Row the Third, was the insane guns that you can have. And my favorite in the third one was the squid gun, the squid launcher.
Yes.
That just blew up everything in rainbows and sparkles. And it was, and also like the little sad squid who's like,
yes. I love that weapon, yes.
Yeah. So do you have anything like new like that in the fourth one? What do I have to look for?
God, yeah. The one that everyone seems to really respond to is the dubstep gun. So that's the one that shoots out, just the power of music and dubstep. And so you can shoot people and you'll kill them when you shoot them, but as you're killing them, they're dancing in their death throes. They're literally dancing as you're killing them, and everyone else around you in sight is also dancing, and all the cars are bouncing and windows are breaking from it. It's the most absurd weapon I think we've ever done, but it's just amazing to watch all the things that happen with it. And it's actually a really useful weapon because it's a pretty powerful gun.
Yeah.
So we've got that. We have weapons like the black hole launcher, which is a little more serious in tone, but it basically does what it sounds like. It launches a miniature black hole that sucks everything into it and then does a little blast and destroys it. All the way to another absurd weapon is called the inflato ray. So you can shoot someone with this, and you'll watch their head, the longer you hold the trigger, their head will keep growing and growing until it just pops.
Nice.
And it sounds far more graphic than it really is, because believe me, it's kind of funny in a twisted way. But yeah, so we've definitely continued our legacy of doing really crazy weapons.
And on that note as well, vehicles as well, are we, because there are aliens now, do we get to see any alien vehicles, UFOs, or anything like that?
You are exactly right, yeah. We figure there's no way we could have aliens and not have UFOs. So there's absolutely, there's hover flying UFOs, or they'll hover, or they'll fly off almost like a jet. There's hover tanks, there's hover cars. So they've definitely got a suite of vehicles for you to be able to use. And what we find more often than not is because you have superpowers, it seems like the majority of people tend to use the superpowers to navigate around rather than using cars. But the beauty of Saints Row to me is the fact that it's totally up to the player to choose. So there are players who just absolutely love driving, and the game will totally there's nothing to prevent them from being able to drive their cars or capture a UFO. All you have to do is press down with a D-pad and hold it, and it will essentially save the vehicle. So then from then on, I can always go back to my pad. I can load that car immediately, and then I'm just in it. So it's so convenient now to be able to pull your cars from your virtual garage or UFOs or any vehicle. It can be accessible anywhere within the world. It's awesome.
So Saints Row as well is known for being a little bit naughty, a little bit saucy, and the thing I'm thinking about most is in Saints Row the Third is something a bit purple and a bit wobbly.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of our more unique weapons for sure. Yeah.
Is that back?
It is. We haven't tried to spell. We have some plans for it.
It's lurking.
With it, yes, exactly. It's a perfect way to word it. Yeah, and we've tried to extend that sort of sensibility in other ways. Let's just say that there's a relationship system in Saints Row.
Oh.
But try to think about a relationship system in Saints Row, and you can only imagine what kinds of humor that we have in store for gamers everywhere with that.
I say. And so on that kind of smutty thread of thought.
Yeah.
When I think of aliens, I think of a specific method of interaction they have with human beings. Will we be seeing any alien probes?
Yeah, that was one that we were going to save for a little bit because it's actually one of our DLC items, and we haven't been talking about DLC at this point because we've just finished the game, or we're all but done with the game, and now the team has been able to move on. But because of the being banned in Australia, they kind of spilled the beans on why were we banned in Australia?
Okay.
And yes, we of course, because how can you have aliens without having an anal probe? And we have a weapon that is an anal probe weapon that the Australians really don't want and do not like, but hopefully the rest of the world finds as humorous as we do.
In that case, if it's just in the DLC, will you just not ship that DLC, but then you can still get Saints Row 4, the game? You're
exactly right. That part won't be available in Australia, and then there was another major change we had to make from one mission that was not up to Australian standards, but otherwise everything else is exactly the same.
I mean, how do you feel about getting not allowed? You're too naughty.
Yeah, it's we laughed about it at work where we weren't sure whether to feel flattered or mildly offended. We weren't sure how to, because we're obviously aware of the kind of game that we do, and we realize it's not for everyone, but the majority of people seem to enjoy it and get that it's all done in good fun. And And it's just humor. From what we're being told, we were the first game to be banned by Australia through this process. So it's a little bit of a learning curve for us, I think, to know that, okay, so Australia really doesn't like things like anal probes. And that's good to know. Who knew?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So just one final question. When's it out? What's it on?
Sure. So it's out August 23rd, and it's out on PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC.
Okay. Thank you very much, Boone.
That works too.
How rude is that?
A lot of people just call me Boone at work, so it's very normal.
Oh, just the Saints Rowness is just.
That's right, exactly. It's very casual.
I was trying to. Thanks very much, Jim. Thanks for joining me today. And so yeah, Saints Row 4. I think it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to kind of get to grips with the more naughty methods and get out there. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Someone's gonna tell me.